Frenzies, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about games and storytelling in games. So maybe just my favorite games. I don't know what I'm going to call this, but this is something I wanted to talk about. So lately I've been getting more and more into reading. I've started to pick up books more often, which is something I wasn't doing for a long time just because I was kind of burnt out on it. And I've been like getting into shows that I've been meaning to watch for years that I just never got to watching, and I'm finally doing it. And everything that I've been kind of like reading and watching and just like paying attention to lately has been very like deep lore, like story driven, and I love that kind of stuff, and that's my favorite thing. Any kind of video game or just like board game, anything that has some kind of like deep backstory, some deep lore into it, that's my favorite kind of game. I'm so into storytelling. So today I wanted to talk about some specific games that I feel are very story driven. Some of these you may not agree with me on that because they're like, the one's a board game and you're gonna be like, how is that story driven? But I will explain. But I just wanted to talk about it because I feel like movies and books are really easy to be like, oh yeah, it has like this kind of storytelling, but games I feel like don't always show that straightforward. So we're going to talk about that today. So the first game I want to talk about is a card game, and it is called Gloom. And I have a little expansion pack. It's called Gloom Unhappy Homes. So basically Gloom is a card game, like I said, and you get a family. It comes with like family cards. You get a family. They all have like different descriptions. And the point of the game is to make your family as miserable as possible before you kill them. And the person with the... because I always say this wrong. The person with the most negative points, like if you have like negative 400, you win. And your job also to like counteract to make sure nobody else wins is to make other people as happy as possible. So there's cards that have negatives and positives on them. And that's kind of that's the whole point of the game. But the way you play the game is through storytelling. You get 2 turns every round, and you have to tell the story of how the card is affecting your character. Let me find a card and I can show you guys an example. Okay, so the card I picked up is called Was Greeted by Ghosts, and I'm going to try to show you guys because like I said, it's see-through. It has a -10 and a -20, so this is a card you would want to play on like yourself. But basically, because it says Greeted by Ghosts, you take one of your characters, like I know one of them is Lord Helena Slogar, I think is her name, and she's a scientist. So you'll be like, you know, Helena has a mansion and she's a scientist and she experiments on people, and one day on a full moon, the spirits went crazy and came back to life and she was greeted by the ghosts of the people she killed. And then you gotta slam it down on your character. Obviously, it gets much more in depth than that. That was like a really basic, crappy like story behind it. But I love this game so much because when you play with people that you're very close to, like I play Gloom. I've played it with other people too, but I play Gloom mostly with my friends Nicole and Steven, and it's usually when I have some kind of Halloween party or birthday party or just party in general, and we're up at like 4 in the morning, delirious from lack of sleep. It gets so hilarious and interesting because if you take in all those elements plus these ridiculous cards, there's one card that's called like Delighted by Ducklings. Ooh, there's one, I think it's like Done In by Dysentery. It's like ridiculous things written on these cards. And that's why it makes it so fun and, like I said, interesting. It makes like a weird backstory lore. And I feel like in a sense, this game could kind of be like Dungeons & Dragons, where you make such ridiculous scenarios that you could use them for like an idea for a book. The characters in here are hilarious, the cards are hilarious, and you have to go to such lengths to tell the story of how these cards are happening. Like, was graded by ghosts. So many things could happen there. We've had people going into bogs. We've had people... Oh, one of the last times we played, there's like these twins. One of these characters are like Frankenstein twins. And basically, they like... were treated horribly, like run out of town, joined the circus, like beaten to death, like nearly beaten to death by clowns, almost drowned in a lake, somehow did really well in Parliament, was disgraced, was delightfully married, had a great honeymoon, and then was like beheaded by the Queen. You go on such a crazy adventure just from playing with other people and getting these cards, and some of them are wild cards, some of them you don't really know what to do with until you have to play it and you don't have a choice. And I just think it's phenomenal, it's hilarious, and it makes for such a fun story that you get to create for yourself. The characters have little like background descriptions of them, but you kind of just blow it all out of proportion. And I think that's really cool. So pick up Gloom if you want. I'll link it on Amazon because that's the only place I was able to find it. But pick up Gloom because Gloom is really fun. Alright, so the next game I'm going to mention, you guys are probably going to be like, wait, what? That doesn't make sense. But again, I have to say that every time I play this game, I'm with my friends Steven and Nicole, again, at like 4 in the morning, we're all sleep deprived. That's why it makes it fun, I think, personally. Personal experience is what has made this game very fun and story-driven for me. So, the next game I want to talk about is Clue! Hopefully you can see that on the camera. Can ya? Can you see it? I don't know if you can. But Clue is one of my favorite games to play, especially with my two friends, because... you guys have seen the memes, I think, of like how Monopoly like destroys families. That's Clue. For me, Steven and Nicole. That's Clue. It gets to a point, because we play like 6 or 7 rounds of this when we do play, when we have like those parties. It gets to a point where it's like cutthroat. And Nicole and I are doing anything we possibly can to make sure Steven doesn't win, because Steven is phenomenal at this game. He's so good. And it gets to a point where Nicole and I are trying to just like do anything we can to make sure he doesn't win. It gets so... like I said, it gets very cutthroat. And we kind of make... again, this is kind of like a make your own thing. We kind of make the story as we go, because not only are we playing Clue, you know, the way you're supposed to, it's the murder mystery, all that nonsense, trying to figure out who it is. But because it gets so, like, vicious between the three of us, we start, like, just saying things to each other that add to the story. So, like, Steven's character is always Scarlet, Miss Scarlet, which I don't know if she's available in every version of Clue. I know I have this specific version, and I know in different versions, whether they're online or different board games, different generations, there's different characters. But Steven always plays Miss Scarlet. Nicole and I switch a lot, but I think I play Mustard quite a bit. No, not Mustard, Plum. I always do Plum. And Nicole kind of goes between White and Peacock, I think? I think those are the two she usually plays. But we just start, like, yelling things to each other. So we'll be writing down what we trying to get our clues together, and somebody will, like, need the dice, so we'll just... What are you doing over there? You sitting in the observatory? You making me a sandwich with the candlestick? The candlestick that you murdered with? Like... It's not really storytelling, but I feel like it is, because again, it becomes such a ridiculous scenario with the people I play with that you could probably use a couple of those ideas to like write a book or make some kind of like stupid movie. You could do like a Clue abridged kind of thing, I think personally. And that's why Clue is one of my favorites and one of my favorite storytelling kind of games. So the next game I'm going to talk about is actually a game that has its own story. It's not a create your own, it's not a choose your own adventure kind of thing. This is a game that actually has story to it. And the game I want to talk about is called Alice Madness Returns. I'm tilting it, so hopefully the light isn't too like bright on it, so you can actually see it. I have it for Xbox 360. It was available when it came out for like PC and I think another console. I don't remember because I bought the PC version and it didn't work, so I had to exchange it and get the Xbox 360 version. I don't remember when this game came out. It's rated M for mature, just so you guys know, for blood and gore, sexual themes, strong language, violence. Does it say when it came out? Copyright 2011, I think it is. I'm not sure. But anyway, this game is the sequel, essentially, to a game called American McGee's Alice. And it's basically a very dark take on Alice in Wonderland, which I think is incredibly interesting. I love Alice in Wonderland. I have like 3 different versions of the movie. I have like the old storybook. One of my favorite stories of all time. Alice in Wonderland in general is just a fantastic story. It's so like fun and weird that any like adaptations of it are even better because it just builds on the already craziness of it, which is so good. But basically, American McGee's Alice and Alice Madness Returns are essentially Alice. She, in the first game, I believe she goes insane because her family dies in a fire. And she goes insane. She didn't do anything to help them. She had no way of saving them. People keep blaming her and saying it was her fault, and, you know, she's crazy, so of course. And the first game is her going to Wonderland after she's gone insane and sees that everything's destroyed because it's, like, in her head. So she has to save Wonderland. She does. She succeeds. But basically, the second game starts with Alice living in, like, it's not really an orphanage because kids aren't getting adopted. It's kind of like a home for children. And there is a doctor there who is like a therapist, I believe. And she's trying to remember things about the fire that killed her family. And she's trying to remember different clues about it because she knows she's not the one who did it. So it's kind of, and it's just strange, and she ends up going back to Wonderland. It's just as dark as the last time. Less people are dead, and there's less, like, crazy... Spoiler alert for the first one. There's less, like, insanity, less dead people, and less people trying to, like, take the power for everything. But there's a train that's going through Wonderland, destroying everything. And basically the whole game is her regaining memories and getting clues as to what actually happened to her family, how this fire started and everything. And the reason why it's my, like, one of my favorite games that does, like, such good storytelling is because I've played this game a million times. Every time I beat it, I basically just start it back up. Steven and I will play this and, like, Skyward Sword in rotation just constantly. The reason why it's one of my favorites is because you get big hunks of the story in every chapter that you go through in the game. You get huge hunks of story between memories, between clues, between things that, like, other characters say, Alice's narration. But a lot of it you need to read between the lines to get the biggest part of it, which is what really happened to her family. You know the basics of it. You know that they died in a fire. You know that Alice survived. You know that she went insane because she couldn't help them. But you don't know the deep, deep part of it. You don't know the final boss. You don't know why the train is in Wonderland. And as soon as you get to the end of the game and it's like the big reveal, you kind of sit there and you're like, oh my god, it makes so much sense! Once you get to the end of the game and you get the big reveal and you get, like, there's a couple cutscenes that, like, really are, like, heavy storytelling, you lose your mind. You lose your mind because it makes sense when you get there. And I think the creators of this game did such a phenomenal job of giving you enough story, but not giving you enough at the same time. You get so much information and you're like, oh, I have this figured out. Like, that makes sense. It was this, or it was this. But then they drop the bomb on you and you're like, what? It's very good. It's Alice in Wonderland, so I loved it before I even played it. And they did such a good job with it story-wise. And then the very, very end, you do the final boss, and then you get to like another big cutscene, and it reveals even more. And then you do like the actual final boss. They kind of fake you out. And then it ends a certain way, and I was happy with the ending. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. Kind of weird, but whatever, I'll take it. But apparently, I saw on Tumblr pictures, because you get a different dress in every level you go on. She starts with this blue one, but you get a different dress in every level you go to. And I saw like a picture set of her in like new dresses, and I was like, oh cool, somebody made fan art. And then I scrolled to the bottom, and the description was like, concepts for the new Alice game. So your girl's excited. We're gonna get more story. I still need to play the first game. I've watched the first game like through a Let's Play, and I know like the whole story and everything for the first game. I want to play it still though. It's just very old and it lags really bad, and I don't know if any of the computers in my house would actually be able to like run it properly. But the third game's coming out. It's gonna be more crazy story. We're gonna have a good time. So the last game I wanted to talk about, I don't have like a physical thing for it. I might be able to put a picture on screen, hopefully, I hope, maybe. If not, I'm sorry. I'll leave a link to it in the description where you can grab it. It's a game I bought on Steam because I watched Let's Plays of it. Mainly the Jacksepticeye Let's Play, because he's adorable when he plays it, and it made me like really excited to play. But it's a game called Slime Rancher. I believe it was $19.99 on Steam. I don't remember. Like I said, I'll link the Steam link so you can buy it. But Slime Rancher is essentially, it's a farming game. It's an adorable farming game. I actually want to get a tattoo of 2 of the slimes because it's so cute. And I bought it and played it a lot last year when I was going through like a really hard time, and it's so cute and it's so comforting, and the soundtrack is so nice. I have the whole soundtrack downloaded. It's just beautiful background noise. I love everything about it. And I know you're going, Heather, it's a farming game. What does that have anything to do with storytelling? I'm gonna tell you. Basically, you're on a ranch. You're on a planet called the Far Far Range. You're on a ranch. You're building your ranch. You're getting your slimes. You're trading in their poops for money. It's a whole thing. It's farming. But as you go through the world, there are notes left around each kind of section of the world. Some on your ranch. They're just kind of all over the place. From this man called Hobson Twilgers. And he just, every time you read one, he talks kind of about like the area you just discovered. He talks about like love at one point, and you kind of read through him and you're like, this guy's weird. Because he has like weird opinions on love. It's strange. But as you go on, you kind of get where he's going with a lot of the things he's saying, especially when you get kind of into like the last section of like what you can discover. But on top of that, you get star mail at your little house, and it's helpful tips and tricks. It's like mini tutorials, things like that. But you're also getting letters from somebody named Casey. And you don't really know who Casey is as you read them. You kind of gather that it's not a boy or girl. They made it very ambiguous like that. Which I love. I absolutely love that. Could be non-binary. We don't know. But you get from the letters from Casey that the main character, her name is Beatrix. You played Beatrix LeBeau. I forgot to mention that. You get that Casey and Beatrix have been friends for a long time. And like, as it goes on and on, you realize that like, the story with Hobson Twilgers and the story with Beatrix are kind of the same. They're going on a very similar path, and it doesn't meet in the middle till like the very end of the game. You get to the end of Hobson's kind of storyline, fine, whatever, no problem, you get like an achievement, and then you get Casey's last letter, you get Casey's last star mail, and then it does the final scene. You're still able to play afterwards, which I have. I've already beat the game, and I love the farming, the music and everything, it's so soothing. I still want to get the gold Gordo. It's a whole thing. But basically you get Casey's Last Star Mail and it's the credits, and it's a song that Casey is singing to Beatrix called 1,000 Light Years Away. And it makes me really emotional. Slime Rancher means so much to me. Just the way that they told the story is really interesting because it's a farming game. You're not thinking anything of it. You're just kind of exploring. It's very interesting. It's kind of outer spacey. You're having a good time. And I feel like you kind of ignore Hobson's letters at first. But as you go further and further, you're paying more and more attention. And like me personally, I was ignoring Casey's letters more and more. But like I said, as you get later and later into the game, you realize that Hobson and Beatrix are on a very similar path, and then they finally intersect. And then you get the final credits and you get the final song, and you bawl like a baby if you're anything like me, because I was incredibly emotional during that. It meant so much to me getting the ending of it. I think they did a fantastic job storytelling-wise, because you go into it, you buy the game, and you play for like the first 2 hours, and you're like, this is a farming game, it's so cute, but it's gonna get annoying at some point. It doesn't. It really doesn't. Honestly, as long as you like breed the pink slimes with something else, the pink slimes are the most annoying part, because you need the poops, but they're boring. They're the most basic slime. Once you get past that, the farming part is actually really fun. It's tedious, but I have a lot of fun with it. I just run back and forth between like the 3 different sections of my ranch and just do cleanup, do feeding, that kind of stuff. But like I said, I think they do a fantastic job of posing it as one thing and then pleasantly surprising you the more and more you play it. So, if you're playing Slime Rancher right now, I kind of spoiled the ending for you, but if you're playing it and you're not really liking it, hold on. It gets so good. So those are all the games that I really like, that are, I feel, very story-driven based. You probably don't agree with Clue. Clue I feel, is very storytelling based. But like I said, it's kind of personal experience. It's who I play with. So, I guess I can understand where you're coming from. That's my personal opinion. I think it's very story-driven based. I don't really know if this is like my favorite games or like my favorite stories, I guess, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video either way. Make sure to leave a like if you did. Come subscribe if you wanna. Come be a frenzy. I finally know how to make thumbnails. You've probably noticed the last couple videos. And we're doing good. We're doing good. We're getting further and further into this YouTube thing, and we're learning things. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye! I hope all of that made sense. I hope you guys get where I'm coming from in this.